The books you should read before you go to Orlando. This is episode 36 of the Go Inform podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me here on this episode 36. Today, we're going to go to the library and talk about books that can help you plan and get ready for your trip to Orlando. So I guess it's a back to school mood here in September. Last week was Theme Park Charm School, and today I get to be your librarian and tell you about some of my favorite books that have helped me get ready for trips and that I still reference even now. I'm your librarian, Maven, and thank you for joining me on the show today. A big thank you to our Go Inform pass holders who help support the show and keep things going. The pass holders are our Patreon patrons who have joined our community through Patreon. If you're interested in finding out more about how this works, you can go over to patreon.com/goinformed and find out how you can join the community too. And pass holders get extra perks like you guys get to be part of a special private Facebook group that we have. And you also get to unlock episodes of the Go Inform podcast that aren't otherwise available to the public. So it's a fun way to support the show. You guys get something extra. We get to interact more in that Facebook group. And I'm really happy to have your support. And I thank you very much for that. So you can check out the show notes to find out more about that. Show notes today are going to be at goinform.net/36. So a lot of you guys probably are familiar with my post over on the website that's called 55 Things to Know Before You Visit Disney World. And the number one top tip that I have there is to do your homework. And geez, I guess we really are in a back to school mode because now we're talking homework. But you guys are doing your homework right now just by listening to the show and getting onto the show notes and learning more about what to expect when you go on your trip. But one of the best ways to do your homework is old-fashioned books. And there are a ton of choices out there, lots of different guidebooks, lots of behind-the-scenes kind of books, all kinds of things related to, especially to Disney World, but there's also some great stuff for Universal. And so this episode is just going to be some of the top things that I reference, that I use, and what's in my library. So that's what I want to share with you guys today. Books are a really good resource for you when you are planning your trip. They're going to provide, depends on the book, but some books are going to be awesome for reference. They're going to have all kinds of details in them to help you figure out everything from where to stay, where to eat, like what the parks are like. All of that kind of stuff. Some books are going to be great for just helping you get excited for your trip and helping other people that are coming with you to sort of get a sense of what they can expect. And some books are just going to tell you about how the parks work, what the history is, what inspired a lot of the rides and the lands in these parks. And really having a little bit of each of these in your library is going to enhance your trip. So I've got about 10 different titles to tell you guys about, and you don't have to take notes. I am going to list all of this in the show notes. Again, that's at goinform.net/36, or just look in your app that you're listening to the show in. You'll see a link to it. On the show notes, I will put links to just Amazon links to all the titles, so you can really click through, see what the book is. and get a sense of it. And if you purchase it at Amazon, it actually does support the show. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but Amazon gives me a little something for, sending you there. So thanks if you do that. But you can find, I think, anything I'm going to talk about today, you can find it at your local library. You can find it at pretty much any bookstore. So use the show notes as kind of your shopping list, your reference list, and then take it from there. But it is handy if you just go straight to Amazon and order them right now. That's part of the reason that I use Amazon links, because I think it's more convenient for you guys. So anyway, all of that's in the show notes, so you don't have to write all this down. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right in here, huh? So I kind of broke up the titles into sort of 3 different categories. So the first thing I'm going to tell you about are the kind of hardcore guidebooks that are going to be really good for whoever is planning the trip. Then we're going to talk about sort of your middle of the road kind of book, which is more of, it's a guidebook, but more pictures, less details, more suited towards someone who's going along for the trip, but not necessarily planning everything. And then we're going to talk about some books that are just for fun, fun to get you excited for the trip, and just fun reading too. So between all the categories there's kind of something for everyone. And books, by the way, really make a good gift for people who are headed to these parks. So if you are going to be, especially if you're going to do sort of a surprise reveal of your trip, like maybe it's a Christmas present or something like that, wrapping up a couple things and putting them under the tree as sort of a hint of what's going on makes it extra fun to do the reveal. But also, if you're just going along on a trip with someone and you want them to get a little bit on board with what to expect and get excited about it and all of that, sending them a book or giving them a book can really help them sort of get more of a sense of what to expect, and it helps them get ready too. And so it makes a really good gift idea. So just kind of keep that in mind especially if you're traveling with a lot of people and you just know that some of them are not going to make much effort to figure out what's going on, you might want to hand them one of these books. Okay, so the first type of book that we're going to talk about are the hardcore guidebooks. And for me, that is the unofficial guides. If you've listened at all or if you've seen the website, you know that unofficial guides is like my top tip for anybody planning a trip to Disney World or Universal Orlando, or actually Disneyland too. They do a great job with these guidebooks. And the reason that I think that they are so great is that they are like a Bible. They have everything you need to know to plan your trip. So they have got reviews of all the restaurants, all the hotels, not just on site. They have information about if you stay off the Disney property. They have descriptions of every ride and attraction in every theme park. And they have a ton of great tips to help you save money and save time and hassle with your trip. The unofficial guide, it's like if you're planning a trip and you don't buy any other guidebook, just get the unofficial guide and you will be good to go. They have an unofficial guide to Disney World and an unofficial guide to Universal Orlando. The Disney World book has actually got some information about Universal Orlando in it. It also has information about some of the other attractions around the Orlando area, like SeaWorld and some of that other stuff. So if you are mainly going to have your trip be at Disney World and maybe you're just going to take a day and go to Universal, then you could probably just buy the Disney World version of the unofficial guide and be totally fine. If you are planning though to, go and stay at Universal and spend a few days there, then I would really recommend also picking up the unofficial guide to Universal Orlando, because it is super detailed, just like the Disney World book. So that one's going to have all the information about the hotels and the restaurants and the attractions and just a lot more touring information and so forth specific to Universal. So I do think it's worth the investment to pick up both books if you're splitting your trip, between the parks fairly evenly. These books come out every year, so keep an eye on it. They usually come out in the fall. The Disney World book usually comes out right around September. The Universal book usually comes out towards the end of the year. But, even if you buy last year's book, you're still going to have almost all good information. They're super thorough with what they're putting in there. And a lot of times, if something is coming, but it isn't quite open yet, it'll still be in the current issue of the book. So don't get too hung up on the years with those books. Like if you're going to the library, just try to find one that's within the last couple years and you should be just fine. Another thing that's really nice with the unofficial guides is that they are published in conjunction with the Touring Plans team. And Touring Plans, that's another thing you've probably heard me talk about before. They have an incredible website, touringplans.com. This is really data driven. So they will tell you crowd calendars, like down to the hour of what you can expect at different attractions. They have incredible touring plans that can help you figure out how to get around the park most efficiently. And some of this stuff is accessible to anyone who just gets over to their website, but a lot of it is only available to subscribers, and their subscription is really inexpensive, you guys, especially compared to the cost of your vacation. I think it's like $15 a year or something to have the Disney World subscription through them. But if you own a current unofficial guidebook, you actually get a discount on that subscription. So they knock a few bucks off it, brings it down to like $10 a year or something like that. So I really recommend that you do both these things, that you get an unofficial guide if you're the planner of this trip, and also that you use that discount so that you can have that subscription on the Touring Plans site. And that subscription also carries over to the Touring Plans Lines app, which is essential for traveling through the parks, especially at Universal. And if you have the subscription, you're going to have a lot more features in the app. So a lot of reasons to pick up one of these unofficial guidebooks. And I can't really recommend it enough. I really think that if you are the planner of the trip, you're going to want to have one of these books for reference. Okay, so the reason that I say that those books are for the planners is because they are so detailed. I mean, you can really get bogged down. It's not an easy read unless you're, wanting to know every detail about every hotel and transportation and all of that. There's not very many pictures in those books, and it's mostly just advice. So for people who are not planning the trip, that's probably way more than they need to know. And in fact, if you have someone who's coming along and you would prefer to just plan everything and not have a ton of input from them, don't give them that book, because they may open it up and be like, well, why aren't we staying at this hotel or whatever? So be aware of that. What I recommend for the kind of next level of guidebooks is the Birnbaum's official guides. So these are probably the most ubiquitous books that you're going to see if you go into any bookstore and you look for Disney World guidebook, you're probably going to find a Birnbaum's guide. The Birnbaum's guidebooks look more like a big catalog. So they have glossy pictures. They have descriptions of a lot of the same stuff that you're going to find in those unofficial guides, but the Birnbaum's guides keep it real simple. So they're going to tell you what the restaurants are, what the rides are, what the hotels are like, and shopping and all that same stuff. But it's much more kind of bite-sized. And so it is really the perfect thing for somebody who wants to know what to expect on the trip, but who does not need to know the square footage of every hotel room. So the Birnbaum's guide, and also because they have all these great pictures and everything, it's just fun. It kind of transports you to the parks, and they're actually sort of a souvenir almost. So I think that the Birnbaum's guides are really great for the people who are coming along on the trip who want to know something about it, but don't need to know everything. Okay, there's only Birnbaum's guide for Disney World. They don't do a Universal Orlando book. So you're not going to find this for the Universal parks. But for Disney World, this is really great for anybody who's going to be heading that way. Now, one of the cool things, too, that both Unofficial Guide and Birnbaum's do is they publish special books that are aimed at kids, and they're about traveling with kids. So you've got a Birnbaum's Disney World with Kids book, and there's also an Unofficial Guide to Disney World with Kids. And these are both really great for your kids. So it depends on the age of the kid which book might make more sense. The Birnbaum's books, because they have these big glossy pictures, they're a little bit simpler in their style and their detailing. Those are great for kids of any age, but especially for younger kids, because even if they're so little that they can't read the book, you can open it up and look at the pictures and read it to them and talk about it. The Birnbaum's book has an autograph section in the back, so it's got some fun stuff that's aimed at kids, especially younger kids. The Unofficial Guide to Disney World with Kids as more for the older kids, because it's a lot like the regular Unofficial Guide. It's big, it's got a ton of text in it, very little pictures, and tons of advice and information. Some of it is written by kids for kids. So if you are traveling with, a little bit older kid who is wanting to be part of the planning process, and I really do encourage you to get your kids excited and involved in planning the trip and getting ready for the trip as soon as you can, because that is just going to make things go smoother when you get there. And the Unofficial Guide for Kids, it really does give the kids a chance to take a little ownership of learning about what the parks are like, and things that they should be concerned about, and what they should expect, and all of that. So those two are really great. And again, they make a really good gift for kids that are going to be going to the parks. So keep that in mind as you head into the holidays. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some books that are more just for fun. These also are perfect for gift ideas for anybody getting ready to head to the parks. And these are going to be related to both Disney World and Universal. So even though there aren't a lot of guidebooks necessarily about traveling to Universal, there are other things that you can read to get ready for your trip and kind of get excited for it. Okay, well, we're going to start with Disney World first, though. There's a couple of sort of behind-the-scenes books that I think are really fun. One of them is called Hidden Mickeys, a field guide to Disney World's Best Kept Secrets. And this book is all about hidden Mickeys. And actually, I think we're going to have an episode coming up here about hidden Mickeys. So I won't dive into it too deeply, but basically it's sort of like a scavenger hunt inside the Disney parks. And as a matter of fact, hidden Mickeys are something that you can find everywhere, not just in the Disney parks. But this particular book is all about the hidden Mickeys at Disney World and where you can find them and how to look for them. And this is a really great thing to be aware of, because when you're moving through the parks, and especially if you're standing in a long line, looking for hidden Mickeys is pretty cool. So getting the book ahead of time and finding out what you should be looking for and where is really helpful. And this is a little book that's actually small enough that you could throw it in your backpack and bring it into the park with you. So I think it's a really fun, it's a great little stocking stuffer kind of thing too. It's like the perfect size for that. So so the Hidden Mickey book is really cool, behind the scenes sort of book. Another book, this is for your more hardcore fans, but I just think it's so cool. There are a lot of Haunted Mansion fans out there, and there's actually quite a lot of books about the Haunted Mansion because it's pretty fascinating. It's got so much going on in it, and it's a lot of history there, and it was something that Walt was involved with, and so there's a lot of books about the Haunted Mansion, but one in particular I think is great for really readers of all ages and enthusiasts of kind of all levels about Haunted Mansion. And it's called The Haunted Mansion: Imagineering a Disney Classic. This book tells you a lot of secrets about the Haunted Mansion, kind of how they do some of the effects, and also a lot about how they decided to design it the way it is. It actually talks about the different versions of the Haunted Mansions in all the most of the different Disney parks. This book's a couple years old. I don't think it has the Shanghai park in it, but it has France and Hong Kong, I believe, and Japan. But anyway, it's a really fascinating look at how the Imagineers decide to do what they do and what inspired some of the things in the Haunted Mansion, and it transports you there. And it's really fun to have a book like that when you're getting ready for your trip and you're excited to go, but you're not there yet. Like having a book about the Haunted Mansion and lots of pictures and all of that. Really, it helps bring that Disney home. So that's another one that I really think is fun to get. So, not all the books, though, that you could read ahead of time are nonfiction. There is actually some fiction out there that is very appropriate to read before you head to the Orlando theme parks. One that's related to the Disney parks. This is a young adult series by Ridley Pearson, and it's called The Kingdom Keepers. These books are young adult thrillers that are set in the Disney parks at Disney World. And I have actually read a couple of them, and they're really fun. And they are aimed at kids, probably like maybe upper elementary school to middle school kind of age. And they are really fun read and actually pretty exciting. I mean, Ridley Pearson he writes adult thrillers too. And also they're really fun because it's like supposed to be, things that are happening in the park after dark when everyone's gone home and stuff. So it's a really cool premise. I think there's about 6 or 7 books in the series. They're just a really good way to get kids a little more excited about the parks. You might also find that this is something that your kid wants to read after you go there, because it's set in the parks. It's really nice if you sort of have a point of view reference for what they're talking about when they're talking about where things are taking place. So that's another idea, is that, there's always kind of a letdown when you get home from a trip. And so maybe you pick up this series and just put it away and then get it out after you get back. Might soften the blow of coming home from after being at Disney. So yeah, those are the Kingdom Keepers books. Now, actually, when you're talking about theme park lands and attractions and stuff that are inspired by books, the place where you're going to really see that is over at Universal. When I think about the Disney parks, I actually have a hard time thinking about anything that's related to a book. It's usually something that's more a movie or that kind of entertainment. And Universal, though, actually does have quite a lot that's inspired by books. The most obvious one, of course, is Harry Potter. So the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, it looks like the movies. And obviously the movies are a huge reason why that land exists. But before the movies, there were the books. And the books actually do have a place in the Wizarding World. There are references to things that happen in the books that aren't in the movies, that are in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So one example is there's an ice cream shop called Florian Fortescue's Ice Cream Parlor, and that is not in any of the Harry Potter movies, but it's in Diagon Alley, and that's because in one of the books, Harry spends a lot of time at Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor. And so it's there in Diagon Alley. And if you haven't read the books, then some of those references are just kind of going to go over your head. So reading the Harry Potter books before you go to Universal, I definitely recommend it. You should read them anyway because they're really good. But definitely it's a good idea if you haven't read the books in a while, or if you have never read them because you just watched the movies, take some time and read those Harry Potter books, because then you will be extra geeky and you'll fit right in with the crowd there in the Wizarding World. Another thing at Universal, and this is at Islands of Adventure, they have an entire land called Seuss Landing that is based on Dr. Seuss. And it's actually really a cool land. If you haven't already listened to my audio tour of Islands of Adventure, you can go back. It's one of the first episodes in the archives here. And I gush about Seuss Landing. But even as an adult, Seuss Landing is really cool because it's like you're walking through any number of Dr. Seuss books, and it references all kinds of them. I mean, yes, there's Cat in the Hat and the Lorax and some of the, really well-known characters and references, but there's also books that if you haven't seen Dr. Seuss books in a while, you're not going to remember the stories. And it's okay if you don't remember the stories, but if you've got a reason to open up a Dr. Seuss book, if you've got a little kids or you've got some books hanging around the house and you haven't looked at them in a while, get them out and get familiar, because A, Dr. Seuss books are super fun, and B, it will actually give you more of a sense of the inspiration for what's in that land. And I really think that the Dr. Seuss land is one of those things that a lot, if you don't have little kids, you might think, well, why would I even go through there? And I highly encourage you not to skip it, because it's really well done and it will take you back to that world of the Seuss books from when you were a kid. So that is another recommended reading, Dr. Seuss. Now, another thing too with these fiction books, that is kind of fun if you are going to do a road trip to Orlando. And that is that you can get these books on audio. So you can sign up for the Amazon Audible service and, like download all of them before you get in the car. You can get CDs, get these books on CDs if your car still has a CD player. And you can listen to them on the road on the way to the parks. And I can't recommend the Harry Potter audiobooks enough. They are done so well, and the time passes so fast when you're listening to those stories. So consider getting some of these books on audiobook if you've got a long drive coming up, and listen to them that way. And also, if you listen to the books in the car, then everybody's hearing the story all together. And when you walk into Diagon Alley and you see Florian Fortescue's ice cream parlor, you will all be like, oh, I know what that is. So audiobooks is another way to kind of get ready for your trip and get that sort of backstory of the different attractions that you're going to see. So that is my, I guess, like sort of top 10 list of books to get before you head to Orlando. I do encourage you, especially with those guidebooks, to pick them up as soon as you can, because especially with the unofficial guides, having that information in hand before you start getting too far in your planning is going to really help you nail down what is important to you, what your options are, and give you a sense of what to expect, and help you decide where you want to stay, for one thing, which is like probably one of the first things you're going to decide about, and even when you want to go. So look for those unofficial guidebooks and get one if you don't already have one. And then as soon as you have it, get on that touring plan site and unlock their subscription, because that is going to be super helpful too, especially when it comes to the crowd calendar. Getting a sense of how crowded it's going to be during your trip will help you make a plan for which parks to see when. That touring plan site will recommend things like that. They'll tell you what the estimated crowd levels are at each park on any given day. So get a hold of those books and get on that site as soon as you can, so that you can really have that solid information to start making your decisions. And I know there's a lot of other really great guidebooks and other books related to the parks that I left out here. And if you guys have something that you just think is really great and should be on this list, can you go over to the show notes and leave a comment? So the show notes, again, they're at goinformed.net/36. And you can look through the whole list and scroll down. And at the bottom of the page, there's a section where you can leave a comment. So if you have something that you think everybody should, know about, a book or a resource that you think is really awesome, let us know. Put a comment and let us know what you think should be added to the list. And you guys that are part of our pass holder community, come on over to the Facebook group and we can talk about it there too. I'm really interested to hear what resources work best for you guys. And that's the kind of thing that we can share with the entire community so everybody can have a better vacation. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me on the show today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Happy reading. And I hope you have a brilliant vacation.